Welcome to The Hype Within, exploring journeys of authentic leadership and growth. On our show, guests will share their stories of developing their leadership skills and challenges they faced along the way. You'll learn about their approaches to self-reflection and personal growth and how they've been able to build a foundation of authenticity that has propelled them to success. I'm your host, Hannah Jacover, B2B marketing leader turned leadership and executive coach. Are you ready to get hyped up? Let's dive in. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming Matt Lyman, who is VP of Demand Gen at LeanData, big fan of LeanData. And Matt is also a fighter for inclusion, a dad, and a fellow marketing ops nerd, which I love. Tell me a little bit about your background, your role, maybe like a unique
Sure.
fact.
Oh man, this is one of those where I feel like I can end up like talking ears off and going down all of the rabbit holes. But I am, yeah, as you said, I'm a dad. I'm a dad first. I am a girl dad. I have two daughters, an 8-year-old and 6-year-old. I'm in marketing. I've been doing it for a long time. A long time. I don't want to say those numbers. And I live in Seattle. I love to ride my bike. I'm a cyclist. It's a good way for me to have a little bit of that alone time with my brain. I started marketing a few years out of college. I'd started doing bankruptcy collections, which is always fun. But that now I look back and that was my SDR experience. So I completely understand how SDRs feel, how sales reps feel when they're trying to get their quotas. Moved into some project management work and then got into marketing and went in the financial industry. And then I jumped over to tech and I fell in love with marketing ops, rev ops, sales ops, because I was doing a lot of it. I ended up at Chef Software, which was big in the DevOps space. And I was there for 6 years prior. They got bought, but it was just this awesome place to learn everything, learn from a ton of people on how to do marketing, how to lead, how to be a good marketer. One of the things that sticks in my head is don't look for reasons not to market to people. I learned all of that. And through the time there, just really stepped into that point of how do I make sure that I'm being who I am while still leading and teaching and helping people navigate their projects, their issues, their personal or at work problems, but then also hey, we got to be ourselves, but we also have to be ourselves at work, which is a lot.
It's a big job to be yourself. Like, I honestly
Mm.
think it is the biggest job to remember who you are and to bring that into everything that you do while still managing to help other people grow. And it's a lot. It's a lot, especially as a leader.
It is. It really is. It can lead to, just very honestly, it can lead to some imposter syndrome around who you yourself are as well. We all have different personalities in different situations. And so looking at work and saying, hey, here I am. How am I doing this as a professional? But then also, how am I going to be me? One of the things that any of you that work at home now, and maybe you work somewhere near your spouse, you can hear if somebody's acting different. And I've had my wife say, that's a different voice than you usually use, or that's a different action, or I've never heard you say that before. And so it's one of those moments that it is tough, right? Like, how do you actually sit down and continue to bring who you are into an instance where it's not set up to be who you are?
You've shared openly that you're ADHD,
Yep.
late diagnosed. I
Yep.
am as well. So we have that in common. And I think what you're also touching on the surface of is there's this show up as yourself for neurotypical people. But when you're not neurotypical and you have to show up as yourself and you have a habit of masking, that adds a tremendous layer to all of
Mhm.
that. Is that anything that you had to work through?
Completely. Yeah. I'm 40. I'm okay saying that. But it was about a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD. But in 2005 or 2006, I was actually diagnosed with anxiety, with just generalized anxiety.
Mhm.
Had some, had a pretty rough week, air mattress on the floor kind of week. And the reason I bring that up is because I actually found as I was coming up through my career that it took me a long time to actually tell leaders. just so they knew, like, it's not going to affect anything, but just so you know, this is a thing. With ADHD, there's so many feelings of it being stigmatized and
Mhm.
people saying, oh, you've got blah, or you have this, or you have that. They're going to think of me differently. And there was a part of me that just finally said, that's okay. You can, because this is who I am. I had this person tell me, I don't remember when, I think it was like October or November when I posted something on LinkedIn about how there was a shortage on Adderall. Understand that if there are people who are on Adderall that cannot get it because of the
Mhm.
shortage, there's going to be some different things happening, or they may need a little bit more help. And I had somebody in a conversation with them that very much understood and said, I think it was really brave because now this happens and probably out there, there's people who may have seen your career and now there's a recruiter somewhere who just marked your name off their list. And I don't say that to say that I was being brave because I actually don't feel like I was speaking who I am. I was speaking my truth, but like that stuck in my head a lot of that sucks that there would be somebody out there that would now say, oh, can't work with them because they are neurodivergent or they have something different going on.
Mhm.
That part stuck in my head about just like, why can't we talk about it?
Just the idea of neurodiversity. Right now, you look at the lens and just everything's built for a neurotypical person. So it's unraveling a lot of that of how can we build things for neurodiverse environments instead of only neurotypical people. So taking a step back in our careers, we learn from other people, right? We're inspired by other people. The reason you're sitting here and you're able to talk about these things and you're able to be the leader you are is based on experience and inspiration. So I'm curious, who or what has been your greatest inspiration or influence in your leadership journey?
This is a really wonderful question because there's so much to it across the board. And I think all of us have the negative one that we see that we're like, whoa, we're not going to do that. And I definitely
Mhm.
have a few of those where I've learned from people I won't be that leader. And I'll call out a few names because I think it's fun. But my first marketing leader, Tony Del Fiero, he brought me into it. He is a very energetic person and has lots of really great ideas. And I learned a lot from him about how do we grab those great big ideas and start to boil them down. Sometimes there were points where I was the person helping him boil them down, but there was a lot of brainstorming that happened. And I liked that a lot. I learned a lot about overall project leadership from a manager I later had named Karina Sinclair. I believe she's a COO now, but learned a lot about, okay, how do we programatize what we're talking about? How do we prioritize? How do we do that in a way that's still part of our jobs without it feeling like a burden? Right.
Mhm.
And so seeing her go through and do all of that and actually seeing her be her authentic self in a company. This is when I was at the bankruptcy law firm. This company was very male driven and there were times that were just like, whoa. And I could see her standing up as who she was and saying, no, we're going to do it this way or we're going to do that. I thought that was awesome. And then a leader I had, a chef named Lauren, who was great, helped me to start to understand where my strengths really were and how everything tied together. She was the one that at one point was like, no, you're doing revenue marketing. I was like, oh, that's what this is. I've had lots of leaders. I think I did the math the other day that since I started in business, I think that I've had 18 different direct managers. And so I've taken stuff from all of them.
Mhm.
I think we all have those negatives of I don't like how that person did this thing or how they oversaw these projects. There was a person that I worked with who you could tell felt they had to be very buttoned up at all times because that was what they were around. And it just felt uncomfortable for me to watch. I take a lot from those people of how are you going to put it all together and have that conversation? And that's three different sort of styles that I mentioned. It all rolls together into one big ball of something. It's a rubber band ball. That's actually a good description. It's a
I
big
like
rubber band ball.
that. So putting together all of the
Mhm.
things that you've taken, the rubber
Yep.
band ball, right?
Mhm.
And if somebody were to say, how do you describe yourself as a leader? How do you define that?
I've never really thought of that. I would say that I'm an empathetic servant leader. I'm one of those people that like I will check on my team, make sure I understand how things are going. I'm not going to delve into their personal lives unless they want. If they want to talk about stuff happening, I'll be there. We'll keep it professional as needed, but I will also be there as somebody to talk to. At the same time, I'm not afraid to do stuff.
Mhm.
I'm a creative person. And I think that's one of the things that people don't understand about marketing ops or even a lot of marketing. You're creative in so many different aspects. I love doing that. And I try to enable my teams to be as action oriented and are able to make decisions. But I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty and I'm not afraid to sit and talk through it or understand how that goes.
I talk with a lot of leaders, and this is a question they struggle with, defining their leadership style. I would say it is a rubber band ball for most people. And I even think taking the time to just sit and say, okay, if I were to write a couple sentences about my leadership style, what would that look like?
Mhm. I actually want to sit down and write that out a bit now.
You really have to go through the process of what you explained. What do I want to take from the people that I really respect? Who do I want to be? What's out there right now that's working well? It's a big conglomerate of all of those things.
Yeah. I feel like marketing's a lot like that too, right?
Yeah.
You're consolidating and that it's a giant conglomerate of all the things that you're seeing and doing.
I know your dad, you have 2 girls. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how that plays into your leadership style.
That's funny, 'cause I guess I hadn't really thought about that either, but that is very true. Not only in my head are a lot of pop culture references, and half the time my team don't understand what I'm saying. And now because I have kids, most of them are kid TV show references as well. And to be even to just to clarify a little bit more, the other piece of my inclusion, my love of inclusion and pushing for inclusion is my eldest daughter was born with Down syndrome. So it's a pretty constant sort of push there for inclusion and all of that. And the thing that it has taught me, and I am still learning, I'm everything that I say on this, like I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy who's trying to go through this stuff and do it. But my daughter, well, we did a lot of research and learning, and my wife actually works in inclusive education. And we went through all of these different, like, how do we do this? And one of the things that I think directly has moved into who I am as a leader is it's a redirect, not a try to change and shift. Any child who's trying to learn with a different ability, if you just go and you say, no, do this, do this, do this, they're just going to push back. And this is just one of those things that I took of, okay, as I'm becoming a better father, hopefully on that and becoming better at how do I help both of my kids redirect as opposed to just stopping and yelling. I've had a short fuse in my life. And so with kids, especially, how do we redirect? But then you get that into leadership. And what it started really looking like for me is understanding that everybody does do things differently and learn things differently,
Mhm.
understand things differently. And that's probably where a lot of my empath stuff comes in too, is that like I can see that one member of my team likes to review and edit and update and review and edit and update, whereas another member of my team might like to just do things and get it out. Okay, great. How do we work together to meet in the middle? Instead of saying, no, you're wrong, how do we redirect it into a, okay, this is how we've done this, or we see the good and we see the bad. Okay, how do we do that? And people are not children. And so I want to straight up say that, like, I don't look at my teams as children because I could hear that being misconstrued by somebody somewhere when I was just saying that. But what I do see is having kids changes your perspective on how you talk to people in general and how you try to move things forward in general. And the idea of the redirect is I can't change a river from flowing, but I can potentially help change how it flows, which is something I have to think about a lot when I'm in an argument with my 6-year old, who is me. And when she's a teenager, I'm in trouble. She's essentially me. And it sounds like she wants to be an attorney the way that she argues. And that's what I have to think about is, okay, great. Where am I at? How do I take this and move it into a positive direction or into a direction that's going to be more productive?
I love the analogy about the flowing river. I think that's so true. People develop differently, right? Adults develop
Right.
differently. And whether you're a child or you're 60 years old, your adult development doesn't always match your age. And even that right there allows us to understand somebody a little bit better of how do you process information, what's important to you. You just have to be so curious and understanding like what are they trying to get at? What's the need? What are they curious about? And let that guide the conversation versus being like the blocker of no, this is how
Right.
it's done.
Oh gosh, that's such a perfect way to say it too, because that is a direct connection to leadership as well, right? From my experience and from my own opinion is if you walk into a meeting and your whole goal is to get your point across and to walk out saying, this is how we're going to do it, you're not a good leader. You're not. You might be a manager, you're not a good leader. And so just as you said, like, how do we take those blockers away? How do we drive this conversation and be curious about it? And anybody who's a parent understands sometimes you're so exhausted. You're like, how do I do this? You're being curious. You want to know. Yes, this is the 15th question in a row. I get it. But why are you asking that question? And how do we keep that going? And then at work, it's fun because you want people to ask those questions. The five whys, really, I want that to be 10, 15, 20 whys because you keep diving further into it. And that's just, I've always wanted people to learn and understand. And it's just the evolution that you go through when you have kids into leadership is that's an interesting thought.
We live in such a fast paced, results oriented, get shit done world, especially in our industry of B2B tech and leading with curiosity, taking the time to explore. It takes time. You have to create
Hmm.
time and space for it when people are just so used to running 1,000 miles an hour, which is hard.
Yeah, I fully agree. Fully agree. It's hard to find the rest area, if you will, if you're driving 80 miles an hour.
Okay, so I want to hear about a turning point or breakthrough in your leadership journey that really sparked that significant growth for you.
I have a couple different things that happened, I think, that led me to where I am. And they might not be the most interesting things in general, but when I look back on them, I'm like, oh, yeah, that had a huge effect. Both of them actually happened at Chef. One of them, there was a person that when I was hired worked next to me. And we got a new leader in who did a slight reorg on things. And this person, she started actually reporting to me. I was excited to have the leadership capabilities and just be seen as, oh yeah, this person's led teams in the past. We'll bring them on, etc. I did a very bad job as a
Mm,
leader with this person. I didn't identify necessarily how this person wanted to be led. I didn't discuss with them like this is how it is. I didn't use any real empathy ideas to sit down and go, where have they come from and how are they going to take this? And we ended up getting into a pretty heated argument one day. And not long after we adjusted those positions, I have actually emailed this person recently to say thank you because they called
mhm.
some things out. I thought I was a good leader. I thought we were doing the thing. I thought we were getting this done, but I had not taken into account this person, how they would feel about it to begin with. And then when that starts happening, everything starts to snowball. And the minute that you say, hey, blank is happening, or we're going to do this thing, they feel like they have no say in things. And so that was huge. And that was a big piece, like as a leader on how do I hear the people and connect with the people and really use that empathy from my Myers-Briggs to discuss with them where we're going to go and make sure they feel enabled and that they have the ability to do the stuff. And then I have one other that actually happened at Chef that was an external situation back when the United States, when ICE started to separate families, our company had a contract with Homeland Security. And part of that was with ICE. And we ended up having blowback because our contract renewed. And because it's a governmental agency, you can see it. And somebody took it and put it out there. And all of a sudden we were getting called out and it turned into hashtag no tech for ice, like all of that stuff. And there was a big blow up. And so I'm on the marketing team. At that point, I was leading my team, but I wasn't really a huge leader on the team. But because it included outbound and it included the blog, which my team oversaw, and included social, which my team oversaw, I started, I got the opportunity to be in rooms with with PR to talk about the quote unquote crisis management, however we would handle that. I got to see how leadership handled it. I saw how one of the leaders handled it to the company, which I actually respected and I thought it was fine. But then I got to see him behind the scenes, how much it actually was hurting him and all that. And I was like, okay, so I see how this works. So I got an insight into more of the executive side, but then I also was able to connect with my team a bit on that because we were all going through this. I was able to talk to my social team and just say, please, I'll handle it. You guys walk away. I say team. It was one person and she was awesome and she still is, but like
No, a team.
it's still a team. Hey, how are we going to do all of this? So it's not about the situation. It was that just led to this whole thing. And it was one of those things that hopefully never happens again because it was not
Mhm.
fun. And we had a tough couple weeks there. It was emotional and stressful and all of that. But I take away from that, like how to see what's happening up above. I got a chance to be right in the middle and help lead those conversations and say, what about this? And I got to say, maybe how we can help message this or talk about this and discuss this. And then I got to work with my team on how are you feeling and what's going on here? Do you need to take some time? That helped me grow a lot, regardless of whatever the situation was. It could have been any sort of quote unquote crisis. I think that really helped me solidify who I am now.
And it sounds like having the ability to zoom in and out with those conversations and have that one to many executive level
Mhm.
versus the one to one personal level and how to handle both of those things with grace.
Yes. Grace, that's a big word for it, for sure. We were all just trying to figure out the way to go about it. Anybody who's in anything like that will go, oh, yeah, that's a stressful time. But I feel like it really pulled a lot of stuff together and team wise too. We were super strong. I thought we were super strong after that, to be honest.
At this point in the show, we're going to do a little rapid fire segment, and it's called Lead or Leave. I'm going to present you with a few different scenarios and just answer as quickly as possible if you would choose to
Oh,
stick it out and
okay.
lead through it
Uh,
or leave the situation.
oh,
Okay? Are
okay.
you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Adopting a pay transparency policy where employees have access to all information about their colleagues, their salaries at every level.
Lead.
Organizing an opposite day where employees swap roles with their managers for the day.
I want to lead that.
Okay. This one's spicy. Inviting Elon Musk to give a motivational talk on innovation and risk taking to your team, similar to his appearances at like Tesla and SpaceX events.
Am I able to explain or you want me just to say?
We could explain this one. I feel it's
Okay.
necessary.
I would lead on that. And I think that's a lot of that is because being able to discuss before and after with your team on why or what or how, and also being able to understand the problems that would rise from that. If it was he took over the company, then I might have a different conversation on how that goes. But I would definitely have to lead through that one.
Okay, last one. Overlords have decided that all future company meetings and board meetings will be held in virtual reality only.
Oh my God. Oh, I would lead on that one. And I would find out the limitations on, since it's virtual reality, like what sort of designs and stuff can I create? Do I get to dress however I want and all that stuff? Like I'd try to figure that out and push the limits slightly because it'll be fun.
I think you led through everything.
I did. It's one of those things that's really tough for me because my team always comes first. Like I've always seen that. I've got two things that I've had leaders say to me that I believe are like legit that anyone should listen to. always take the recruiter call because you never know. It could be something that's interesting. I had a leader tell me that once, and I was like, really? Yeah. Because look, if you come back to me and you say, I'd rather we be doing this, or I want to do this, or great. I want you to learn and grow. And the second one was don't run away from something, run to something.
Mhm.
When you're going to your career, you run to something. Now, there's always the big caveat of if you are in a toxic environment, you are unhappy and you have to go, go. You should. I like saying this. If any of your listeners are in a toxic environment and they need to go somewhere and they want somebody to help them find a new job, please reach out to me because I will help you because you need to get out of something that is ruining your mental health. So between those, I look at it and I'm like, I will help lead through a problem. For me, it's always been like lead is always the first thought. And then I have to define for myself, what does that mean? How's it going to be good for me, et cetera.
I love that, and adapting. I want to talk a little bit about authenticity, vulnerability, and inclusion. How do you go about creating a culture of authenticity that inspires innovation and nurtures all of those diverse perspectives?
That is a very great, very detailed, very complicated question because there are a lot of different things that have to go into it and a lot of different ways that you have to really think through it. I think one of the things that helps is to have the conversation to start and it not be lip service. So having any sort of inclusionary practices is important. I've been part of a couple of DEI committees, a couple of employee engagement committees, a couple of those at different companies to try and help build that culture of inclusion and authenticity of how do we talk about things and how do we do that. I think that the biggest thing though that you can do is to lead by example. And that's a terrible answer for this because mostly because it's not something you can just write down. I'm not going to write a book about lead by example. I might, nobody steal that specific example. I asked a member of my team who was female to set up a meeting with somebody from another team who was male and myself to pitch her idea. She went through it, she did it. And the other person, the male, kept talking to me, kept asking me questions, kept doing it. And I finally was like, I'm not here to give this pitch. I'm here to be a fly on the wall and answer any big questions. And so when I say lead by example, I mean really practicing what you're preaching.
Yeah.
Marketing is an easy place to go to say, let's get all of the ideas. Let's get in the room and brainstorm. Let's have this conversation. One thing that I do with my team now and then, I've done it for a while, and if any of them are listening, they're going to laugh at this, is this deck of cards called Edison Ideas. I think it's from Best Sell. They don't sell these anymore because I've been trying to buy them again, but they're just a deck of prompts. And the idea is that you spend some time and you write 10 answers to the prompts. And really what you're doing is you're getting your brain going and you're thinking. And I've done this in a few different team meetings. I've done it in some different offsite brainstorm or ice breaking sessions. And so the idea of leading by example, especially in this being open and creating this world of inclusion is I'm not going to force you to do this. I would like for you to sit down and write it. We're going to take the time when the timer goes off. We're going to go through it. And I'm going to read mine. I will read all of mine. I will go through it and I will read the 10 podcasts I would put together today or the 10 websites that I feel like I think are the best or whatever. Like it's just a bunch of different things, business and
Mhm.
otherwise. But then I will say, hey, if anybody wants to, please do. Because I want them to feel that they have the ability to say no to that. It's a small thing. I know that's like really small, but when you're trying to include everyone's ideas and everyone's thoughts, there's a balance between calling people out to get their thoughts and letting them speak up with their thoughts. You have to know when to do each. And if you lead by example with that, then you're going to start fostering that. And hopefully others will see you doing that and understand that it's time to go in that
Mhm.
direction.
I feel like it's so simple and it's something that anybody can do. Anybody can say, I need a crutch. Like it's okay to use tools and things that will help you facilitate that, what I believe to be psychological safety. to where you're creating that environment where people can speak up and they feel good, they feel safe, they're not scared of judgment or retaliation. And there's so many tools out there that we can lean on to help with that. It doesn't have to be all you.
That's really great. I've never thought about it as psychological safety, but I do like that a lot. You also learn a ton about people when you do that kind of stuff. If they feel safe, they're going to say different things than if they don't. If they
Yes.
feel safe, you're going to learn more about who they are as a person.
And especially if you are an empathetic person, you just naturally understand psychological safety. It's just what you understand to be like, I have to go through these steps to
Mhm.
get somebody to feel like they are safe. They trust me. We have that mutual respect. And I do think that it can just naturally occur with some people. I also believe that a lot of people in leadership positions don't understand psychological safety at all. And they do need a very clear, defined process and definition of what that means. Gosh, I could sit and talk to you all day, I know for sure, but we are out of time, and
Bummer.
I know, but we can always have a part 2 because this was lovely. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your stories. And just for some closing thoughts, I was scrolling through some of your posts and on LinkedIn, and I saw something that you wrote, and it was about leadership. And you said, you will be remembered by your team, and you can choose what it is they remember. I know this isn't your team, this audience isn't your team, but maybe one day, future team, whatever. What is that thing that you want to share right now to be remembered by?
I want to be remembered as somebody that made a difference. Literally, I think that's it. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be, this is my favorite. People want to be firefighters or doctors. I wanted to be Rick Moranis in Spaceballs. I didn't want to be Dark Helmet. I didn't want to be an actor. I wanted to be him in that movie. And as I got older and I went through everything and I realized it was because I wanted to be remembered for something good.
Mm.
People call it Spaceballs as a good. Rick Moranis in Spaceballs is objectively awesome. But I think for me, I want to be remembered that I've made some sort of a difference. And I don't mean necessarily in their lives or in business, but like there are people, if you went around and you asked the questions of everybody I've ever led with the what did you learn? I would hope that I would be on that list somewhere. I would hope that just because it's I guess there's probably an ego thing in there, but it's also because I really enjoy when my team succeeds. And I really enjoy when I get to see them go do bigger, better things. I used to talk a lot about where my team was and where they went and the titles they have. And it was just great. And so I think in my head, that's where that goes is I want my team to know that I cared and that I was trying to make a difference in their careers and with the work that they did.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay. Any last recommendations that you have to give? Books, podcasts, exercises to help other people go through this authentic leadership journey on their own and be who they want to be?
I think there's three things that I would say, and I'll keep them all short. But the first one is find your meditation. Find that moment that gives you your peace so you can be the best you. Mine is taking 5 minutes of breathing every morning. Literally, I've got an Apple Watch and I hit that mindfulness thing for 5 minutes and I just sit and breathe. No thoughts. I think way too much, but not doing anything. It's just an important thing. The second one is the things that make you happy, lean into them. I love comedy podcasts. I love them. I like to laugh. I like to hear absurdity. I think it's fun because it breaks up the monotony of everything else. And then the other thing I would say is burnout. Be aware for yourself and for your team. There's a really awesome book, got it back there, called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. And the idea is that it's not just about getting rid of the stressor, it's about getting rid of the stress. And in a world where we don't get a chance to leave our houses anymore because we're all remote, it's important to do this. I think those three things have helped me a ton on learning to be who I am and identifying who I am. And again, I have so much growth to do. I almost feel like the imposter syndrome just came up here where I was like, why are you even interviewing? What? I'm just a guy who does things. So I think it's important to understand that you have something to give. And those three things have helped me really just sit with who I am and be that person.
Those are great tips, especially the one on burnout. I'm going to check that book out too. And you did give a lot. You gave so much, and I appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
I appreciate you being vulnerable, not only just
Mhm.
here, but any platform that you have. Like, you use your voice, and that's really important for me personally, and I know for others because it inspires action. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And been a pleasure.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. I hope you walk away with something empowering that you can take into your own leadership journey. Are you a high performing executive looking to take your career to the next level? Or an emerging leader who wants to develop the skills you need to advance in your role and show up authentically? Or maybe you're experiencing burnout and struggling to find a better work life balance. Whatever your situation is, coaching can help you achieve your personal and professional goals. If you're interested in learning about and experiencing the power of coaching for yourself, head on over to hypehousecoaching.com/start coaching now, where you can set up a one-on-one leadership and executive coaching intro session for free. Remember, the only hype that really matters is the hype within.